From KTVA 11 News, this is Nightcast.
Good evening, I'm Joe Vigil.
And I'm Emily Carlson. In about 14 hours, we may have a better understanding of how Governor Sean Parnell handled the Alaska National Guard's sexual assault scandal.
Today, a judge ordered the state to hand over hundreds of pages of emails by noon tomorrow. The ruling is a result of a lawsuit by members of the media to get emails from inside the Parnell administration. This month, the state agreed to gradually release more than 12,000 emails as they reviewed them. But after 10 days and 10 lawyers working full-time, they've only handed over 5. Lawyers today argue the emails contain privileged information like victims' names. They have until noon to produce the emails or provide a log as to why they aren't being disclosed under state law. Well, tonight, a former Alaska National Guard member says it wasn't what Guard leadership did, it was what they didn't do that nearly killed her after she was sexually assaulted. Now, Emily Carlson has been looking into this for a couple months now. What have you discovered now, Emily?
Well, Joe, while the National Guard says they made leaps and bounds in improving how they handle sexual assault victims, a former Guard member says there's much more to be done to fix what's broken.
My name is Melissa Jones, and I was sexually assaulted while a member of the Alaska National Guard.
Specialist Jones says speaking out is agonizing but necessary. She says serving in the Iraq War pales in comparison to the pain she experienced at the hands of fellow Guard members who Jones says spread horrible rumors about her after she was raped.
That I had been gang raped instead of, that somebody had broken into my apartment. But, they were just like kind of trying to blow everything out of proportion and make it sound, not that it wasn't horrible on its own, but, to make it that much worse was, humiliating. And
Jones spoke with us via Google Hangout. She moved to Illinois because she says living in Alaska was too painful. Jones says in 2007 she was drugged and raped in her apartment off base. She's not sure who assaulted her, but when she tried to get help, Jones says her superior officer told most of her unit she was raped. Jones says even the sexual assault response coordinator's office knew and refused to help.
They said that since there was a breach in confidentiality, since my story had been leaked, that because it could no longer be kept confidential by their office, that there was nothing that they could do for me.
Humiliated and desperate, Specialist Jones pushed aside her feelings. She deployed to Iraq and tried to focus on her duty as an Alaska soldier.
I had nowhere else to turn. I had nobody else to talk to, so the only option I had was to keep quiet and keep my mouth shut and just pretend it didn't happen.
But in 2011, the weight of dealing with her rape alone became too much. Melissa tried to kill herself.
I had been burying everything for so long and trying to deal with it that it obviously came out in an extremely negative manner, and I just didn't want to deal with it anymore.
7 years after Melissa Jones's rape, the National Guard's SARC, or Sexual Assault Response Coordinator, says there's progress.
There's been a lot of changes with how things are investigated and looked at.
Octavia Thompson says in the past year and a half, she's overhauled the program. The biggest problem? Educating commanding officers about discretion.
What we do is we then look at is who in that chain of command needs to know that information, and then we try to secure it to just those folks.
Octavia says before she took over, those officers lacked the right tools to help victims after a sexual assault. But now she says the chain of command is equipped to handle cases with compassion and respect.
I think that has probably been one of the biggest challenges that has been out there is helping the chain to understand what that process is. And when that victim does come forward, whether it's to myself, to the unit victim advocate, or even to someone within the chain, to understand.
Other changes to the program include more victim advocates and more training. There are now 44 advocates for 4,000 National Guard troops. Advocate Melissa Jones wishes would have been there for her.
It's about standing up and making sure that it is allowed to be the great entity that it can be.
While she's encouraged by the positive steps in the Guard's sexual assault program, Melissa Jones says there's much more work to be done before the Alaska National Guard is a safe place for all soldiers. Melissa Jones eventually sought counseling. She is waiting for her medical discharge papers from the